Ottawa just sent a signal that Washington didn't expect to hear out loud. A statement that, on the surface, sounded like routine frustration, but underneath it carried something far more serious. Canada is no longer satisfied with its role inside America's most expensive military program. And this time, the message wasn't whispered behind closed doors. It was said publicly, deliberately, and with consequences. Canada's industry minister made it clear that Ottawa believes it is getting far less than promised from the F-35 fighter jet program. For years, Canada has been told that participation would deliver long-term economic returns, high-value industrial work, and access to cutting-edge aerospace technology. But what Canada is seeing instead is a familiar pattern. Money flows south, control stays south, and Canadian companies are left fighting for subcontract crumbs inside a system they don't own. This is not just another defense procurement complaint. It is the first visible crack in one of the most politically sensitive military relationships in the Western Alliance. And it raises a question that Washington is watching very carefully. If Canada is willing to rethink the F-35, what else might it be willing to challenge? Canada has been tied to the F-35 program for decades, investing hundreds of millions of dollars as a partner since the 1990s. The expectation was clear. In exchange for early financial commitment, Canadian firms would become deeply embedded in the global supply chain, manufacturing parts, maintaining fleets, and building long-term industrial capacity at home. On paper, it looked like a win-win. But the reality looks very different. Most of the high-value work remains concentrated inside the United States. Key technologies, software systems, and intellectual property are tightly controlled. Canadian companies participate, but they do not lead. They supply, but they do not own. Canada pays into the system, yet remains dependent on decisions made elsewhere. That frustration has now reached a breaking point. Ottawa is signaling that if economic returns and industrial independence cannot be guaranteed, then loyalty alone is no longer enough. And that is where an unexpected alternative enters the picture. Sweden's aerospace firm Saab has quietly positioned itself as more than just another bidder. Its proposal goes far beyond selling aircraft. Saab is offering Canada something the F-35 program never truly did: domestic control. The plan includes building a full Gripen E production line inside Canada, training Canadian engineers, and establishing a self-sustaining aerospace ecosystem that does not require foreign permission to function. The scale of the offer is hard to ignore. Thousands of high-skilled jobs, local manufacturing, technology transfer, maintenance and upgrades are performed on Canadian soil by Canadian workers. This is not about assembling imported parts. It is about ownership. And Saab's approach is not theoretical. It is based on a model Sweden has followed for decades. During the Cold War, Sweden deliberately designed its defense industry to avoid dependence on any superpower. The Gripen was built to operate with flexibility, survive in harsh conditions, and remain functional even if supply chains were disrupted. That philosophy now aligns closely with Canada's own strategic needs. Canada's Air Force does not exist to fight distant wars. Its core mission is defending vast territory, protecting Arctic sovereignty, and maintaining constant readiness across extreme environments. And in those conditions, practicality matters more than prestige. The Gripen E was designed for exactly that kind of mission. It can operate from short, icy runways. It functions reliably in deep cold. It requires fewer maintenance hours and smaller ground crews. And perhaps most importantly, it costs far less to operate. Estimates place its cost per flight hour at a fraction of that of the F-35. For a country with limited defense budgets and enormous geographic responsibility, that difference adds up quickly. The F-35 still has undeniable strengths. Its stealth capabilities, deep integration with NATO networks, and advanced sensor fusion make it a powerful tool for high-intensity conflict. But that raises an uncomfortable question. Does Canada actually need a jet optimized for penetrating enemy airspace? Or does it need an aircraft that can reliably patrol, intercept, and remain airborne day after day without draining the budget? That question becomes even more serious when technology control enters the conversation. The F-35 is not just a fighter jet. It is a closed system. Software updates, weapons integration, diagnostics, and even certain repairs require approval through American-controlled channels. Canada would operate the aircraft, but it would not fully control it. In practical terms, that creates strategic risk. If political tensions rise over trade disputes, climate policy, or Arctic access, Canada's access to critical updates or components could be delayed or restricted. Ownership without autonomy is not true ownership. By contrast, Saab's model emphasizes openness. Gripen operators are allowed to integrate their own systems, adapt software, and customize capabilities without external veto. Countries like Brazil have already demonstrated that this flexibility is real, not theoretical. For Canada, this represents something far more valuable than a single aircraft platform. It represents technological sovereignty. Predictably, Washington is not comfortable with this conversation. The F-35 program is more than military hardware. It is a strategic tool that binds allies into a shared ecosystem under American leadership. When a country buys the F-35, it locks itself into long-term dependence, operationally, technically, and politically. If Canada steps away, it sends a message that could echo far beyond North America. It suggests that close allies can prioritize independence without sacrificing security, and that is precisely the precedent Washington wants to avoid. But Ottawa's thinking does not stop with fighter jets. Canada is quietly building a broader strategy aimed at diversifying both defense and economic partnerships. A recent security and defense cooperation agreement with South Korea is a key example. This deal goes well beyond symbolism. It opens the door to technology sharing, joint manufacturing, and collaboration across energy, minerals, and advanced industry. South Korea has become one of the world's most efficient defense producers, delivering modern systems at lower costs and faster timelines than many Western suppliers. Canada brings resources, engineering expertise, and access to critical materials. Together, they represent a different model, one based on partnership rather than dependency. This shift reflects a larger vision championed by Prime Minister Mark Carney. Carney has repeatedly argued that Canada cannot continue exporting raw materials only to import finished products at premium prices. His focus is on rebuilding domestic manufacturing capacity, capturing value at home, and reducing vulnerability to external shocks. Recent trade disruptions and protectionist policies from Washington have only reinforced this view. When allies prioritize their own industries first, Canada must do the same. Self-sufficiency is no longer an abstract concept. It is an economic necessity. The F-35 decision now sits at the center of that transformation. It is not simply a procurement choice. It is a statement about Canada's future, whether the country remains a junior participant inside someone else's system or takes the risk of building something more independent. Other nations are watching closely. If Canada succeeds in reshaping its defense strategy without compromising security, it will become proof that middle powers can balance alliances with autonomy. And that possibility is exactly why this debate matters far beyond Ottawa. The final outcome is still unknown, but one thing is clear. Canada is no longer quietly accepting the terms it is given. It is asking harder questions, and those questions are forcing Washington to pay attention. Now we want to hear from you. Should Canada prioritize independence, even if it complicates alliance politics? Or is sticking with the F-35 the safer path in an uncertain world? This video has a 500 comment challenge. Drop your opinion below. The best comment will be pinned at the top. If you value deep, fact-based analysis like this, support the channel by joining the conversation. Your voice helps shape what we cover next.